Welcome to Competition Curious, a blog, vlog, and podcast for business owners and marketers who are curious about running competitions. I am your host, Suki van K. I am the world's first and only expert, strategist, and complete nerd when it comes to competitions. In the first ever episode of Competition Curious, I thought it would only be polite to introduce myself and share a little bit about how I came to be the world's first and only dedicated competition expert, so you can get to know me a little bit better before we dive into all of the delicious competition content that I've got lined up for you over the coming weeks. So without further ado, let's jump into the first ever episode of Competition Curious. My name is Suki van K, or when I'm in trouble, Sakina van Koverden. As you can probably tell from my accent, I was born in the UK and I moved to Australia in 2011 when I was in my mid-20s. Now, I knew that I wanted to stay in Australia, so I started looking for a job after I completed my obligatory 3-month farm work on a sheep farm, which was honestly way more fun than it sounds. And I found my dream job on Gumtree, of all places. So I phoned up and I spoke to HR and I said, she can tell from my accent that I'm from the UK. So she asked about the visa situation. And I said that I was looking to be sponsored. And she said, this is something that we used to do in the past, but it's not something that we do anymore. So in my 20-something-year-old cockiness, I said, okay, sure. You can hire an Aussie and in 6 months' time they could leave. Or you can hire me, give me a sponsorship visa, and I'm guaranteed to stay with you for 4 years, which was the requirement of the visa back then. So she kind of paused for a second. It's a bit of a no-brainer. So she's like, okay, yeah, come in for an interview. A couple of interviews later, I ended up landing my dream job in a corporate travel company. It was here that I discovered the wonderful world of competitions and really fell in love with them. So in my job, I was creating travel prize packages and managing the prize fulfillment for companies like AAMI, Allianz, Disney, Pepsi, Doritos, Coles, Woolworths. So essentially they would run a consumer promotion and they would come to us to quote up and put together these amazing prize packages that they would give away. And then once they'd drawn the winner, they would then hand the winner over to us and we would actually book the prize in. So it meant that I got to do wonderful things like phoning people up to tell them that they won a luxury $20,000 cruise or trip somewhere amazing like Costa Rica. And so you can see why it was completely easy for me to fall into completely in love with competitions in this job. So I had a few favorite clients at the time, and I used to take Paramount Pictures were one of my favorites. So I used to take them out for lunch. And I used to ask them all of these questions about the competitions because I wasn't at the time involved in the strategy side of things. So, we were sat there and we were talking about these amazing competitions that we'd put together. And they would mention these things like game of skill and game of chance and prize pigs. And all of these things will be, subject for future episodes. But I was completely enraptured. I was completely sucked in by this world of competitions. And I would ask them more. And we would talk about how, more people enter for a game of chance and how people enter competitions for a living. And it was just, it was this whole new world for me. And it was absolutely fascinating. Now, in this job, as I said, I just did the travel prize concepts and fulfillment. There was no strategy there for me. So it was really an opportunity for me to just learn everything I could about competitions in general. A few years into this job, a few years down the line, I was actually managing this prizing department and we were turning over more than $1 million every year in prizes. And my then boss rang me up and said that he wanted to invest $50,000 in my department. He said to me, put together a business plan, present it to me, and we can go from there. Amazing. I was so excited. I was desperately in need of staff. I was desperately in need of a marketing budget to get out there and start promoting what we do, and really just grow the business. I was so excited. I was so hungry. And so I went back to my desk and I Googled, how to write a business plan, and put together what I would consider now a very rudimentary business plan, and went to a meeting and I handed it to him very proudly, and he leafed through it just, through the pages. And then he said to me, he pushed it aside and then he said to me, leaned forward in all seriousness, and he said, Suki, the best salesperson I ever knew was in the 1980s in Barclays Bank. And all he did was he booked a room, he got a phone, he got a list, and he just called until someone said yes. And if they said no, he crossed them off and tried the next one. That's what I want you to do. I just want you to cold call. And so you can imagine my reaction. We've gone from a $50,000 investment in my department that's turning over $1 million a year to you just need to sit in a room and cold call people until they say yes. And this was in the days when inbound marketing was really just starting to take off, was really just starting to gain traction in terms of how much better value for money it was. So when I say inbound marketing, I mean not cold calling and reaching out to people, but things like, optimizing your website for SEO so that when someone needs something and they Google it, and then they come in to you instead of you reaching out to them. So as you can imagine, after this meeting, I was pretty disheartened, but I did know that I still had this $50,000 that he was going to invest. So, I wanted to do something really nice for our existing clients, make sure that they were looked after, make sure that they were going to stick around and continue using us. So I wanted to do something nice for the main client that we had that accounted for about 50% of our revenue. So I contacted my boss and I said, I want to arrange something for these clients. Which cost center on the P&L do I need to allocate this to? So basically, like where am I going to put this on the budget? And he said, he paused and he sort of said, well, the $50,000 is kind of more figurative than literal. So it turned out there wasn't actually any $50,000 at all. He really just wanted me to sit in a room and cold call. And so it was at that point I just thought, you know what, I'm not going to go anywhere here. This isn't the business for me. This isn't the way that I want to do competitions. And I had so much knowledge and so much passion and so many ideas for what I could do that was just so much more than we were currently doing. And that company just wasn't interested. So I decided to leave, and I was setting up my own business on the side whilst I took an interim job. And at the time, we were also purchasing a property interstate. So by the time 2015 rolled around, I actually ended up getting fired from the job that I was in. How many people's stories, a business story, start with I ended up getting fired, or I quit my job, or I was made redundant. And we bought a house, great time to buy a house, and you've just been fired. And we moved interstate from Sydney up to just north of Brisbane and started my business. It was a pretty big year for me, pretty big year for us. Yeah, so that was 2015, fast forward 7.5 years, and here we are. Hundreds of competitions, millions of dollars of prizes and competitions later. I have worked with small businesses, marketing agencies, big businesses to create national and statewide competitions. I'm the author of a competition guide, and I also teach an 8-week course which guides business owners through the whole process of planning, building, launching, promoting, and closing a successful competition. And I also offer a done-for-you competition concierge service. I also speak on stage about competitions for fun because it would appear that I was born without the fear of speaking gene, a very rare occurrence. I just love standing up on stage, and instead of one-to-one, I guess it's kind of the same as a podcast, except I can't see you guys. Instead of helping someone one-on-one, I am helping a room full of people, or a podcast app full of listeners. So it was kind of only a matter of time before the vlog and the podcast came along. Now, the blog has actually been going since the business started. That was part of my, again, inbound marketing strategy. So yeah, there's about currently 150 posts on the website, which I am currently redoing to turn into podcast episodes so that they will be updated information-wise, and also because I know some people prefer to consume content via podcast instead of reading. So that was the inspiration, and the reason for starting Competition Curious was really just to give my audience another way to consume my content, which wasn't reading lengthy blog posts. Some of the blog posts estimating reading time are about 10 minutes. So they can get a little bit lengthy when you're talking about something that you're passionate about, and they're quite involved. So yeah, that's pretty much me. That's how I ended up becoming the competition expert that I am. It is a very short intro episode this week, just really so you can get to know me before we dive into all of the amazing competition content that I have got planned that I will be sharing in upcoming episodes. So I hope that you have enjoyed this episode of Competition Curious, the very, very first episode. And I would really love for you to share this podcast with your business and marketing friends. Subscribe so that you can be notified when a new episode is available. And I really look forward to seeing you again for the next episode.